Hi everybody, my name is Mr. Jones. I'm Deputy Head Teacher at Arena Academy and have been asked to produce this week's Wednesday Wisdom. And it is, of course, the UK Thank a Teacher Day today. Across the country, students have been using an amazing website to anonymously, if they wish, send a message in to say a huge thank you to a teacher for how they have changed their lives or enriched their time at school as learners. And on behalf of all the teachers across the trust who've received one of those this morning, can I say an absolutely huge thank you to those of you that have been so thoughtful to take the time to do so, and to remind those of you that haven't yet that you can still visit this website in order to thank a teacher. So today, for today's Wednesday Wisdom, I thought I would have the privilege to think about and share with you some of my memories of some of the really important teachers that I have had growing up, and that have made an absolutely massive difference to the person I am today. I thought back when I was preparing this of Mrs. Glover, my primary school teacher, who inspired in me an absolute love of reading and the joy of a story. Mr. Kite, my RE teacher at secondary school, who used an amazing and piercing wit to hold a class absolutely in awe of what was being taught, and was the first teacher I had that really encouraged me to think seriously about going to university. I thought too about a PE teacher, and many of my students will obviously be surprised that I have such fond memories of a PE teacher, never having become a natural sportsman. But I had a PE teacher, Mr. Tattersfield, who recognised that sport wasn't necessarily my thing, but found a way of making it engaging and instilling in me a confidence and a willingness to participate, even though my instinct said not to. I had a brilliant French teacher at secondary school, Mrs. Simpson, who made me see French and speaking foreign languages as a way of showing empathy, of demonstrating feeling and compassion and opening up the world of others. I had an RS teacher when I was at sixth form, Deborah, who was brilliant at having a strong and clear and very set of beliefs and ideas, and encouraging me to develop my own, but by doing so through constant self-criticism, questioning, and rejecting something simply for the sake of it being an idea that one couldn't challenge. And as I thought about these teachers, it really made me think about the fact that we're always constantly learning, and that we can borrow from teachers all throughout our lives. The thing when I look back and remember my teachers, and those of you as students one day will do the same, I'm reminded of the Maya Angelou quote, in which she said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And it's as I think back about those staff, that is absolutely right, that I can't necessarily remember every word they said or the way that they did everything. But what I can remember is those warm feelings of confidence, encouragement, passion, enthusiasm that they unleashed in me. How you are as students today and how you interact with your teachers will truly stay with you for the rest of your life, because those early interactions with those adults, they are the first people who, after your family, model effective, healthy, positive relationships. And how you build and construct and learn from and benefit from those relationships will enable you to go on to enjoy a life where you continue to build powerful relationships and learn effectively from others to enrich yourself. I've loved seeing, though naturally have not eagerly taken up, the opportunities offered by Joe Wicks's daily PE lessons, in which he's been nicknamed and brands himself the nation's PE teacher. Now, Joe Wicks does so without any teaching qualification and isn't appointed as a teacher in a secondary school. But what the fact that he is nicknamed the nation's PE teacher has revealed and reminds us is that to be a teacher isn't just something that we wear on a name badge. Being a teacher is who we are, and it is incumbent upon all of us to be teachers as well as learners, because true teachers, the best teachers, are those that have an enthusiasm, that tap in somewhere to the world of knowledge and discover something, and then communicate and unleash and empower others to find it as fascinating and as interesting as them. And all across our trust, our students have individual, unique talents, perspectives, interpretations, bits of knowledge that the rest of us don't have access to, and which we would love to hear more of. And the best teachers innately share and enthuse and inspire others to take that up. It's why John Dewey, who was a American philosopher and thinker on education, wrote, "Education is not preparation for life, as we so often brand it in school. Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. Because to learn, to continue to learn, to be inspired, to feel differently, to think differently, to question, to challenge, to reevaluate things about the world we took for granted, that is the substance of what it means to be alive. And there is real power in doing so today." I was really encouraged as a history teacher by watching the commemorations of VE Day last week. And what really encouraged me, and I'm reminded, John Dewey, who wrote all these amazing things about education, was also a passionate believer in the importance and power of democracy, of about individual people filled with a confidence and an attitude and an outlook to participate and to serve, would go on to help and enrich the lives of others and their communities as a whole. And VE Day was a perfect celebration of that, a moment when we as a people came together across our city and country to stand up against totalitarianism and brutality, and said that we are going to fight for a greater good. And of course, we were victorious in that struggle. Now, 75 years on, we find ourselves in a similar moment of peril, where it is incumbent upon all of us to find a way of being that is supportive of those around us, that encourages, that enriches, that feeds the soul of others. And that is something I think is really, really powerful and important to draw upon on UK Thank a Teacher Day, as we remember what it really is to teach. And whether we are teachers in a school, whether we are support members of staff involved in making schools better places for young people, or whether we are students coming in to learn, every single one of us has things to teach and ways to enrich and ways to widen and broaden the knowledge of ourselves and that of others. And I think that is something really special and worth celebrating today. I'm going to hand over to, and I'm really pleased to be collaborating across schools within our trust, and I'm collaborating this morning with Mr. O'Brien from City and Central School. And Mr. O'Brien and I trained together, and I remember, in the spirit of learning from one another, watching so many of Mr. O'Brien's history lessons and being absolutely inspired by the absolute certainty, clarity, control with which he held a classroom. I remember one particular lesson in which he reduced a number of students to tears by recreating the atmosphere of Jack the Ripper's crimes in Victorian London. And collaborating with him to do this Wednesday Wisdom has reminded me that we continue all of the time to learn, and we become better people for learning from, borrowing from, and adapting the skills and special talents we see in others. So it gives me great pleasure and privilege to hand over to Mr. O'Brien this morning, and to thank you very much for listening to this week's Wisdom Wednesday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, for such a lovely introduction there. And hello to everybody. I am Mr. O'Brien, and I'm assistant head teacher at Central Academy. Much like Mr. Jones's experiences there, I've also been lucky enough to have experienced some great, wonderful and amazing teachers during my time in education. And I can recall a couple who stand out for me, having sort of nurtured me through education into the person and the teacher that I am today. My initial thoughts go back to my first couple of days in secondary school, year 7, when my head of year 7, a lady called Miss Mitrovich, who for me initially was a very scary lady, and I thought was only in charge of behaviour and making sure students did the right thing, turned out to be sort of a guiding character for me, and somebody who taught me really to stay on the right path, to do the right thing, to structure your day appropriately and make sure you've got all the right resources, but also did so much more than that. Throughout that year and my time in that school, Ms. Mitrovich revealed some really in-depth and personal things around her family's experiences of Holocaust survival. And that really is the first spark that I found in my love and passion for teaching history. And we had many conversations about that. And there were many artifacts Ms. Mitrovich spoke to me about, which sort of fostered a love for history and a passion for learning around some certain subjects there, which I took on and ran with, and ended up going to university and studying in depth. Now, Ms. Mitrovic didn't just have an impact on me as an individual. I can also see the impact she had on some of my friends I went to school with, many of whom I'm privileged enough to say went on to also be teachers, some great and amazing teachers who teach in a variety of schools in now a variety of different countries. I think secondly for me was a lady called Miss Broadbent, who was my German language teacher. And Miss Broadbent came into my educational career at a point where I was studying French. I was finding it very, very difficult. And I was very much a teenager of the mindset of I'm not able to learn a language. I can't do this. And I started to go to German lessons when I was in year 8. And Miss Broadbent sort of enabled me to see that languages were more fun through her various teaching styles, small jokes in lessons, small bits of humour here and there, but also her constant encouragement and support allowed me to become better at German language. And then I started to like and eventually love learning German, and I went on to take part in German exchange programs. I visited Germany a number of times. I've been to the Rhineland. I went to Berlin. I went to Frankfurt, and each time I went to Germany as part of my German language study at GCSE and at A level, I picked up a new piece of information. I continued learning, which again cemented in me that I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to pass that learning on to others, to students, and gave me sort of the answer to what I wanted to be when I grew up, which of course is a teacher, and that's how I found myself where I am today. And that also fostered in me a love to travel, which I still hold as an adult, and going to a new place every time is very exciting for me. I like to see cultures and what different areas of the world have got to offer, and really experience different people's lives. And all of that came from 2 teachers who I experienced when I was at school and through my school career. But I think how I teach and what kind of teacher I am has also come from my love of literature. And I think it's really important that we recognise the role of teachers in literature and how they can sort of shape and impact our lives as well. Now, a couple that I can recall and think of off the top of my head are Mrs. Honey, who is in Roald Dahl's Matilda. So for those of you who have not read Matilda or seen the movie Matilda, Miss Honey is a sweet, gentle and understanding individual. As a teacher who recognises Matilda as a student has got so much sort of academic potential, and it's through sort of support and encouragement and nurture and love that Miss Honey is enables Matilda to foster a love for learning and to go on and pursue her potential. And the second sort of character or teacher in literature that I find really fascinating is Professor McGonagall from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. Professor McGonagall, again, for those of you who have not read the book, is a straight-talking, no-nonsense lady who is known for her intelligence and skill. And whilst sometimes to some people she can appear cold, it is her intelligence and skill she imparts on students and sets them up to have fantastic life chances without any excuses. That sort of captured my imagination whilst I was reading Harry Potter, and again has shaped who I am as a teacher and how I approach students and learning and being in school and inside the classroom also. And I think there's a really strong connection between the teachers I had at school, the teachers I came across in literature, that created the principles for me that I try to adhere to as a teacher. I want every child to love being at school. I want every child to enjoy being at school. But I also want to make sure that regardless of anyone's starting points, we support and encourage students through any barriers they might have towards learning and being in school, and try and overcome those so everyone achieves their full potential. And you know, I also recognise that learning never stops, even as an adult and a qualified teacher. I can recall my first days inside the classroom, and I, again, as Mr. Jones alluded to earlier, we did train together. I do recall watching Mr. Jones, and he was teaching a sixth form class about the US role in the Vietnam War. And I remember sitting there and watching how Mr. Jones shared great sort of intelligence with his sixth formers, and how very different to my classroom management. He fostered a love for learning through humour, through wit, but through genuine and authentic compassion and love for learning, which he was able to impart so easily onto students, which meant that every teacher who came into the room and every student who came into the room was captured, was fascinated, and didn't want to be anywhere else. And I think that's really important, that continuous learning cycle we go into, even as adults. There is no one that can say they never stop learning. And it's important to remember that no one is the finished article. There is always more learning to do around something different, something you might never have imagined doing before. And finally, I would just like to add to everybody, I think it's a convenient time this year when Thank a Teacher Day has fallen upon our Mental Health Awareness Week. And the Mental Health Awareness Week and its theme this year is around kindness matters. So I think it's a nice wrap-up point at this point to say, students and other colleagues who are watching, please do go to a teacher. Tell them whether they've inspired you, helped you, or supported you along your way, and just tell them that you are thankful for them and for everything they do. And I would just say at this point, thank you very much for watching our Wednesday Wisdom, and I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you very much.